Watch the bearded man in the center, lighter in hand. His name is Hanif. He just blocked Times Square with 50 protesters, ready to burn books in defiance. But when the flame touches the page, everything changes. His hands start trembling uncontrollably.
My name is Hanif. I'm 28 years old. February 12th, 2024 was the day I tried to burn a Bible in Times Square. I was a devoted Muslim activist, raised by an Imam father in Brooklyn. I organized the protest myself, gathering 50 brothers for one mission. That day, I encountered something I couldn't explain, something that shattered everything I believed. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in a neighborhood where the call to prayer echoed from the mosque 5 times a day. My father served as Imam at Al-Noor Mosque, a position he held with fierce pride and unwavering devotion. From the moment I could speak, I was memorizing Quran passages. By age 5, I could recite entire surahs without hesitation. My father would beam with pride, his hand resting on my head as he told the congregation about his gifted son. My mother reinforced these teachings at home. She was gentler than my father, but no less committed to shaping my world view. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, maybe 7 years old, when she first told me about the Bible. The Christians corrupted their scriptures, she explained. They changed the words to suit their desires. The Bible is a book of lies, Hanif. Never forget that. Those words echoed through my entire childhood, repeating in my mind whenever I saw a church or encountered Christians in my neighborhood. I attended public school, but my parents made sure I remained separate from the non-Muslim children. I ate lunch alone, never accepted invitations to birthday parties, never participated in Christmas celebrations. My father warned me constantly. They will try to convert you with their false trinity, he would say. They worship 3 gods and call it one. It is shirk, the unforgivable sin. Stay away from them. I internalized every warning, every caution, every fear. High school brought my first real encounters with Christian students. They seemed so cheerful, so confident in their faith. A girl named Sarah once invited me to her youth group. I felt disgust rise in my throat. How dare they try to mislead me? How dare they smile at me while worshipping a false god? I reported the incident to my father that evening. He nodded approvingly. You did right to refuse, son. Their friendliness is a trap. The anger I felt that day didn't fade. It grew into something deeper, something darker that would define the next decade of my life. I enrolled at NYU at age 18, finally experiencing freedom from my parents' constant oversight. But I didn't use that freedom to explore or question. Instead, I joined the Muslim Student Association immediately, attending every meeting, every protest, every event. That's where I met the leader. He was 10 years older than me, charismatic and passionate, with a way of speaking that made you feel part of something important. He noticed me after I gave a heated speech at a campus debate about religious freedom. You have fire, brother. We need that fire. Those words awakened something in me. The leader pulled me deeper into activism. I started attending underground meetings in basement apartments across the city. We talked about defending Islam against Western imperialism, about standing firm when the world tried to silence us. The rhetoric grew more intense with each meeting. Peaceful protests don't work anymore, the leader told us one night. They ignore us, they mock us, we need to make noise. Everyone nodded. I nodded hardest of all. The turning point came during my junior year. The leader showed us videos on his laptop, footage from Europe of protesters burning Qurans. My blood boiled watching those flames consume the holy text. My hands clenched into fists. How could they do this? How could they desecrate the word of Allah so publicly, so proudly? The rage I felt was all-consuming. We should do the same to their book, I said, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. The leader looked at me and smiled. Exactly, brother, and you're going to lead it. The idea took root immediately. For 6 weeks we planned every detail. I recruited 50 committed brothers, men who shared my anger and my conviction. We purchased 50 Bibles from various bookstores across the city, paying cash so there would be no electronic trail. I felt no guilt handling those books. They were tools of deception, instruments of a corrupted religion. We planned our route from Brooklyn to Times Square, calculating the maximum media impact. We wanted the world to see us, to hear our message, to know we would not be silenced. I volunteered to be the first to light the flame. This felt like my calling, my purpose. This is my jihad, I told myself every night before sleep. I prayed 5 times daily for strength, asking Allah to make me brave, to make me steadfast. I had no doubts, no hesitation. I was absolutely certain I was doing the right thing. I convinced myself this was righteous anger. that Allah would reward me for defending His truth. I imagined the headlines, the news coverage, the respect I would earn from my community. February 12th would be my moment of glory. Look back at your own life for a moment. Have you ever been so certain of something that you couldn't imagine being wrong? That was me. I had built my entire identity on this foundation of absolute certainty. I was a soldier in a holy war, fighting against the corruption of truth. I never questioned whether my anger was justified. I never wondered if there might be another way. I was 28 years old, educated, intelligent, and completely blinded by my own conviction. I thought I knew everything about God, about truth, about right and wrong. I had no idea how wrong I was. I had no idea that in just a few weeks everything I believed would be shattered in a single impossible moment on the streets of New York City. I woke up at 4 in the morning on February 12th, though I hadn't really slept. My mind had been racing all night, rehearsing what I would say, how I would stand, how I would hold the flame. I performed Fajr prayer with an intensity I'd never felt before. Allah, make me strong today, make our message heard worldwide, make me an instrument of your truth. I prostrated for what felt like an eternity, my forehead pressed against the prayer mat, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. I dressed carefully in simple jeans and a black jacket. I wanted to look relatable, like an everyday person making a stand. I checked my phone and felt a rush of adrenaline. We were already trending on Twitter. Someone had leaked our plans, and the hashtag was spreading. I read through the comments, some supporting us, others condemning us, but everyone was talking about us. My heart raced with excitement, not fear. This was exactly what we wanted. The meeting point was Brooklyn Bridge Park at 8 in the morning. I arrived early, watching the sun rise over the East River, feeling like I was standing on the edge of history. Brothers began arriving one by one, exactly as planned. We embraced, exchanged quiet greetings, felt the solidarity of shared purpose. By 8:30, all 50 of us stood together. The leader moved through the crowd, distributing signs we had made the night before. Your book, our flames, no more lies, Islam will not be silent. I took mine and held it proudly. Brother Khalid approached me with a leather-bound Bible. This one's special, Hanif, make it count. I took it from his hands, feeling its weight. It was heavier than I expected, the leather worn and soft. For a brief moment, something felt strange about holding it. Not wrong exactly, just unfamiliar. I pushed the thought away immediately. This is just paper and lies, I told myself, nothing more. I held it like a weapon, like proof of my conviction. We began our march toward Manhattan at 9 o'clock. Our chants echoed through the morning streets. No more lies, no more corruption. Your book will burn. People on the sidewalks stopped to stare. Some filmed us with their phones. Others shouted support or hurled insults. I didn't care. We were making noise. We were impossible to ignore. Police officers began following us within the first 10 minutes, their patrol cars crawling along beside our march. Good. I wanted them to see. I wanted everyone to see. Traffic began slowing as we crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. Drivers honked their horns in frustration as we blocked an entire lane. I felt powerful walking across that bridge, 50 brothers moving as one, our voices rising above the city noise. The skyline of Manhattan stretched before us, and I knew that in just a few hours, everyone in those buildings would know our names. They would know we had been here. They would know we refused to be silent anymore. We reached Times Square at 2:30 in the afternoon. The intersection was packed with tourists, the massive screens glowing above us, advertisements and news tickers scrolling endlessly. This is perfect, the leader whispered. Maximum visibility, maximum impact. We moved into formation, spreading across the intersection in an organized grid. Then, on his signal, we all sat down simultaneously. Traffic stopped immediately. Cars couldn't move forward or backward. Drivers leaned on their horns. People shouted from their windows. Police radios crackled to life all around us. Within minutes, news helicopters appeared overhead. I could see their cameras pointing down at us. I looked up and smiled. The world was watching now. There was no turning back. The leader stood in the center of our group and began leading new chants. We are not afraid. We will not be silenced. Your corruption ends today. The energy was electric. I had never felt so alive, so purposeful, so certain that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. At 2:45, the leader gave the signal we had all been waiting for. Brothers around me began pulling out their lighters. I reached into my pocket and felt the cool metal of mine. My hand was steady, my heart pounded, but not from fear, from anticipation, from righteousness. I opened the Bible to a random page, not caring what it said, not wanting to read the lies written there, but my eyes caught words anyway. For God so loved the world. I shook my head, forced myself to focus on the mission. These are just words, corrupted words, meaningless words. I brought the flame closer to the page. All around me, brothers were lighting their Bibles. The smell of smoke filled the air. Flames rose from their hands, pages curling and blackening, turning to ash. The crowd watching us had grown larger. Some were cheering us on. Others were screaming at us to stop. I heard sirens in the distance, more police arriving. Everything was happening exactly as we planned. I positioned my lighter just above the page, ready to complete what I had come here to do. Then I touched the flame to the paper and nothing happened. I held it there for a full second, then 2, then 3. The paper didn't catch, it didn't even darken. I pulled back, confused, thinking maybe I hadn't held it close enough. I tried again, this time pressing the flame directly against the page, still nothing. Around me, Bibles were burning normally, flames consuming page after page, but mine wouldn't catch fire. The paper remained white, unmarked, untouched by the flame that should have destroyed it. My hands began to shake. I looked around frantically, trying to make sense of what was happening. Every single brother around me had flames rising from their Bibles. The smoke was thick in the air, pages were curling and blackening and turning to ash. But my Bible remained perfectly intact. I tried the third time, holding the lighter flame against the page for 5 full seconds. My hand trembled now. The paper should have caught instantly. Any paper would catch fire that quickly. But this one refused. Panic started creeping into my chest. This doesn't make sense. This is impossible. I dropped the lighter and grabbed the Bible with both hands. Maybe if I couldn't burn it, I could tear it. I gripped a handful of pages and pulled with all my strength. The pages didn't rip. They didn't even bend. It felt like trying to tear steel. I pulled harder, my fingers turning white from the pressure. Nothing. The pages remained perfect, unmarked, as if mocking my attempts to destroy them. Brother Khalid noticed me struggling. He turned away from his burning Bible and stared at me with confusion. "Hanif, what's wrong?" His voice seemed distant, like he was speaking underwater. I couldn't answer him. I couldn't form words. All I could do was stare at this impossible object in my hands. My breath came in short gasps. Sweat poured down my face despite the cool February air. My heart hammered against my ribcage so hard I thought it might burst. I tried the lighter one more time. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold it steady. The flame touched the page again and again. Nothing happened. Not even a scorch mark, not even a hint of damage. Around me, the protest continued. Brothers chanting, police shouting through megaphones, helicopters hovering overhead. But I couldn't hear any of it anymore. All I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud and frantic, pounding in my ears like a drum. The Bible fell open in my lap, the same page I had tried to burn, the same verse my eyes had caught before. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The words seemed to glow on the page. Not literally glowing, nothing supernatural in appearance, but they burned themselves into my vision anyway. I couldn't look away, I couldn't blink. Those words pierced something deep inside me, something I didn't know existed. My legs gave out. I collapsed to my knees right there in the middle of Times Square. The Bible slipped from my hands and hit the pavement, still open to that verse. I stared down at it, my vision blurring with tears I didn't understand. Why am I crying? Why can't I breathe? Why does this feel like my chest is being crushed? Brother Khalid grabbed my shoulder, shaking me. "Get up, what are you doing?" But I couldn't move. I was frozen, locked in place by something far more powerful than fear. The leader pushed through the crowd of brothers and stood over me. His face was twisted with anger and confusion. "Hanif, stand up right now, you're making us look weak." His words reached me but didn't penetrate. I opened my mouth to explain, but no sound came out. How could I explain what I didn't understand myself? How could I tell him that this Bible refused to burn, that the pages refused to tear, that something impossible had just happened right in front of me? I picked up the Bible again with shaking hands. I held it against my chest, feeling its weight, feeling its realness. This is just a book, just paper and ink. But even as I thought those words, I knew they were lies. This wasn't just a book. Something about it was different. Something about this moment was different. The verse kept echoing in my mind. For God so loved the world, for God so loved. God so loved. I had spent 28 years believing I knew who God was. What if I had been wrong? The tears came harder now, streaming down my face without permission. I didn't care that the cameras were recording. I didn't care that my brothers were staring. I didn't care that I looked weak or broken or defeated. All I cared about was this overwhelming sensation flooding through me, this presence I couldn't name, this feeling that I was standing at the edge of something vast and terrifying and beautiful all at once. Have you ever had a moment where everything you thought you knew suddenly collapsed? where the foundation you built your entire life on cracked and crumbled beneath your feet. That was this moment for me. I knelt there in Times Square, surrounded by 50 brothers who thought they knew me, surrounded by flames and smoke and chaos, but all I could feel was this terrible, wonderful certainty that everything had changed, that I had been wrong, that I had been so catastrophically, devastatingly wrong about everything. I didn't know how to pray to Jesus. I had never spoken his name except in mockery or argument, but desperation erased every rule I had ever learned about prayer. I whispered into the Bible, pressed against my chest, my voice breaking, "Jesus, if you're real, if you're really real." The words felt strange in my mouth, foreign and frightening. "I've hated you. I came here to burn your word. I organized this protest. I recruited these men. I did this to hurt you, but this book won't burn. Why won't it burn?" My whole body shook now, trembling from something deeper than cold or fear. "Show me the truth, please. I don't know what's happening. I don't understand any of this. But if you're real, if you're who they say you are, if you're who this verse says you are, then show me. I surrender. I don't even know what I'm surrendering to, but I surrender." The moment those words left my lips, everything shifted. The weight that had been crushing my chest suddenly lifted. The panic that had gripped my throat released. A warmth spread through my body, starting from my heart and radiating outward, and it wasn't like fire or burning. It was like coming home after being lost for years. It was like being seen for the first time in my entire life. It was peace, pure and inexplicable and absolutely real. And with that peace came a knowing, deep and certain, that I had just encountered something far beyond my understanding. I had encountered him. The chaos of Times Square rushed back into my awareness all at once. Brother Khalid was shaking my shoulders violently. "Get up, the police are coming, get up now." I looked up at him through tears and saw fear in his eyes, not fear of the police, fear of me, fear of what he had just witnessed. I tried to speak, to tell him what had happened, but my voice came out as a whisper. Something happened, something real. The leader appeared beside Khalid, his face twisted with rage. "What are you doing? You're embarrassing us. You're embarrassing the entire community." He reached down and tried to pull me to my feet, but I couldn't stand yet. My legs felt like water. The peace that had flooded through me moments before was still there, but so was the weight of reality. Police officers were advancing through the crowd. Sirens wailed from every direction. Brothers were scattering, some still holding their burning Bibles, others dropping them and running. 2 officers reached me before I could even attempt to stand. One of them grabbed my arm firmly, but not roughly. "Sir, you need to come with us." I didn't resist. I let them pull me to my feet, still clutching the Bible against my chest. Another officer noticed it and held out his hand. "I need to take that as evidence." I looked down at the Bible, at this impossible thing that had just changed my entire life. "Please, I need it." The officer's expression softened slightly. "You'll get it back, I promise." Reluctantly, I handed it to him. He placed it carefully in a clear plastic evidence bag. They zip-tied my wrists behind my back and led me toward a police van. I looked back over my shoulder at the intersection. Smoke still rose from the scattered remains of burned Bibles. Protesters were being rounded up and arrested one by one. The massive screens of Times Square displayed news footage of our protest from helicopter cameras. I could see myself on one of the screens on my knees, crying, holding the Bible. The image looked like someone I didn't recognize anymore. The police van was cramped and hot. They loaded 15 of us inside, brothers from the protest who had been arrested together. I sat on the metal bench, head down, still trying to process what had happened. The other brothers huddled together at the opposite end of the van, as far from me as possible. No one spoke for the first few minutes of the drive. Then Brother Khalid broke the silence. "You're weak, Hanif. You disgraced us all." I looked up at him slowly. Maybe I am weak, but I felt something real back there. Something I can't explain. The leader, sitting beside Khalid, laughed bitterly. "You felt fear, that's all. You lost your nerve, and now you're trying to justify it with mystical nonsense." I shook my head. "It wasn't fear. The Bible wouldn't burn. You saw it. You were standing right there." Khalid's eyes narrowed. "Your lighter was defective. That's all. Technology fails. It means nothing." But I had tried to tear the pages. I had pulled with all my strength and they wouldn't rip. How do you explain that? The leader leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "I explain it by saying you're making excuses for your weakness, and if you keep talking about this, there will be consequences. Do you understand me?" I understood perfectly. I was being warned. I was being threatened. But the peace in my chest hadn't left. If anything, Their threats only confirmed that something real had happened. We arrived at the precinct downtown and were processed through central booking. They took our photos, fingerprints, personal information. 6 hours in a holding cell with 10 brothers from the protest. They continued to huddle together, speaking in low voices, occasionally glancing at me with disgust. I sat alone on the opposite bench, replaying everything in my mind. The flame that wouldn't catch, the pages that wouldn't tear, the verse that burned into my vision, the overwhelming peace that followed my desperate prayer. At 11 o'clock at night, a bail organization posted bond for all of us. We were released with court dates and given back our belongings in plastic bags. I opened mine and there it was, the Bible, perfectly intact. I held it carefully, reverently, afraid of what might happen if I tested it again. Outside the precinct, my father was waiting. His face was a mask of controlled fury. "Get in the car. We're not talking here." I climbed into the passenger seat, clutching the Bible in my lap. He didn't speak during the entire drive back to Brooklyn. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I had never seen him this angry. We pulled up to our apartment building and he finally spoke. "Your mother is waiting. The entire family is waiting. You've seen the videos, I assume." I nodded slowly. My phone had blown up with notifications during my time in the cell. I was on every news channel, every social media platform. Muslim protester has breakdown during Bible burning. The headlines were everywhere. Father turned to look at me fully. "You have shamed us. You have shamed our mosque. You have shamed our community. Whatever happens next, you brought this on yourself." Inside the apartment, the entire family was gathered in the living room. Mother sat on the couch, her eyes red from crying. Uncle stood with his arms crossed, his expression hard. Aunt sat beside mother, whispering to her in Arabic. The moment I walked in, all conversation stopped. Father threw his phone at me. I caught it and saw news footage playing. Me on my knees, me crying, me clutching the Bible to my chest. The comments below were brutal. "Coward, traitor, weak, apostate." Father's voice was ice cold. "Explain yourself." I tried to find words that would make sense to them. Something happened out there. The Bible I was supposed to burn, it wouldn't catch fire. I tried everything. It wouldn't burn and it wouldn't tear. Uncle interrupted with a harsh laugh. "So your lighter didn't work and you had a panic attack. That's your excuse. It wasn't just a lighter." I tried to tear the pages with my hands. They wouldn't rip. It was impossible. Mother's voice was barely a whisper. "You're exhausted, Hanif. You weren't thinking clearly. You've been under so much stress planning this protest. You just need rest." I looked at her, at the desperation in her eyes, at her need for this to be something explainable and temporary, but I couldn't lie to comfort her. "It wasn't stress, Mama. Something real happened. I felt something I've never felt before. I read words in that Bible that I can't get out of my head." Father stepped closer, his voice rising. "What words? What could possibly be in that book of corruption that affected you so deeply?" I opened the Bible to the page to John chapter 3, verse 16. This verse, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son." Father's hand shot out and slapped the Bible from my hands. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. "Don't you dare quote their scripture in my home. Don't you dare bring their poison into this house." Uncle picked up the Bible from the floor, holding it like it was contaminated. "This is what caused all of this filth." He walked toward the kitchen, and I knew what he was planning. I jumped up. "Don't, please don't." But he was already at the stove, turning on the gas burner. He held the Bible over the blue flame. "See, Hanif, watch how easily it burns. Watch how ordinary it is." The corner of the Bible touched the flame and caught fire immediately. It burned like any normal book would burn. Uncle dropped it in the sink and ran water over it, extinguishing the flames. I stared at the burned, waterlogged Bible in the sink. So it burns now. It works like a normal book now. But in Times Square, in that moment, it didn't. I can't explain why. I can't explain any of it. But I know what I experienced. Father grabbed my arm roughly. "You experienced fear and weakness, nothing more. Now go to your room. We'll discuss your punishment tomorrow." I pulled away from him. Punishment for what? For having an experience I didn't ask for encountering something I can't explain. Mother stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Hanif, just say you were confused. Say the pressure got to you. Say whatever you need to say to make this stop." I walked over to her and took her hands. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry for the pain this is causing you. But I can't lie about what happened. I can't pretend I didn't feel what I felt." She collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing. Father pointed toward the hallway. "Your room now. We'll talk in the morning." I walked to my room and closed the door behind me, sat on my bed in the darkness, mind racing, heart still filled with that inexplicable peace, despite everything that had just happened. I had lost my family's respect in one afternoon. I had become a source of shame to my community, but I couldn't deny what I had experienced. I couldn't rationalize it away. Something impossible had happened in Times Square, and that impossibility had pointed me toward a truth I had spent my entire life running from. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from Times Square. The Bible uncle had burned, sat in a garbage bag outside my bedroom door, a charred reminder that reality had returned to normal. But I couldn't shake the memory of those pages refusing to catch fire, refusing to tear, remaining perfect despite my every attempt to destroy them. Around 2 in the morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I needed to read that book, not to mock it, not to find flaws in it, but to understand what had happened to me. I waited until I heard my parents' bedroom door close and the house fall completely silent. Then I crept out of my room, retrieved the burned Bible from the garbage, and brought it back to my bed. The cover was destroyed and the edges were blackened, but most of the pages were still readable. I turned on my phone's flashlight and opened to the Gospel of John. I started reading from chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. My hands trembled as I read. Everything I had been taught said these words were corrupted, changed, false, but they didn't feel false. They felt alive. I read through the night, barely noticing the hours passing. I read about Jesus turning water into wine, healing the sick, raising the dead. I read his words about being the bread of life, the light of the world, the way and the truth and the life. Every page contradicted everything I had been taught, yet every page resonated with something deep inside me. By the time sunlight started filtering through my window, I had finished the entire Gospel of John. I was exhausted, but I couldn't stop. I moved on to Matthew. During the day, I maintained my normal routine. I prayed at the mosque 5 times. I ate meals with my family. I pretended nothing had changed, but every night I returned to that Bible. I read the Sermon on the Mount and felt convicted by words about loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you. I had spent years hating Christians, and here was Jesus telling his followers to love their enemies. I read about the crucifixion and felt something break inside me when I understood what he had endured. I read about the resurrection and felt hope stir in a place I didn't know existed. 2 weeks passed in this double life. Muslim by day, secret seeker by night. The weight of the deception was crushing me. I was lying to everyone I loved, pretending to be someone I was no longer sure I was. The community had mostly forgotten about my breakdown in Times Square. A few people made comments, but my father shut them down quickly. His son had a moment of weakness under pressure. It's over now. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Friday prayer at the mosque was torture. I sat beside my father listening to the Imam preach about the corruption of Christianity, about the false doctrine of the Trinity, about how Muslims must remain vigilant against the deceptions of the West. Every word felt like a knife. I wanted to stand up and shout that they were wrong, that I had encountered something real, that Jesus was not who they said he was. But I remained silent, paralyzed by fear and family obligation. After the prayer service, there was a community gathering in the mosque's main hall. The leader was there, speaking to a group of young men about the protest. I tried to avoid him, but he caught my eye and motioned me over. I walked toward him reluctantly, my stomach churning. He put his arm around my shoulder in a gesture that looked friendly but felt threatening. "Brother Hanif, we haven't spoken since that day." I nodded, not trusting my voice. The leader smiled, but his eyes were cold. "Some of the brothers have been talking. They say you've seemed different, distant. Is everything all right?" I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Everything is fine. I just needed time to process what happened." He squeezed my shoulder harder. "Good, because we're planning another action next month, something bigger. And we need to know we can count on you, that you won't break again." I felt trapped, cornered, but I managed to nod. "You can count on me." He studied my face for a long moment, then released me. "Good, because the community is watching you, Hanif. Don't disappoint us again." That night I read about Peter's denial of Jesus. 3 times Peter claimed he didn't know Jesus, afraid of what would happen if he admitted the truth. I understood Peter in a way I never had before. I was denying Jesus every single day, every single moment I pretended to still be the Muslim I had been before Times Square. The weight of that denial was suffocating me. I couldn't keep living this way. Something had to break, either this new faith or my old life. There was no middle ground. Look inside your own heart right now. Have you ever felt caught between two worlds, knowing you can't stay in both but terrified of choosing one? That was my existence for those 2 weeks. Every prayer at the mosque felt like betrayal of what I had experienced. Every chapter of the Bible I read felt like betrayal of my family. I was being torn in half, and I knew I couldn't sustain it much longer. The breaking point came during another family dinner. My uncle had invited himself over, along with my aunt and 3 cousins. The conversation turned, as it always did, to politics and religion. Uncle started talking about the importance of remaining faithful to Islam in a hostile culture. Some people let the West corrupt them with talk of love and tolerance. They forget that Islam requires strength, requires commitment, requires willingness to fight for truth. Everyone at the table nodded in agreement. Father added his own thoughts. True believers don't break under pressure. They stand firm. They don't compromise. They don't bend. I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, realizing they were talking about me without saying my name. Every word was a test, a challenge, a reminder of what was expected. Cousin Ahmed, who was only 16, spoke up with the certainty of youth. I could never betray Islam. I would rather die than become a Christian. Uncle beamed at him. That's the spirit we need. That's the conviction that will preserve our faith. Grandmother, sitting at the end of the table, added in Arabic that apostates were the worst kind of people, lower than animals, deserving of punishment in this life and the next. The words hung in the air like poison. I set down my fork, my appetite completely gone. Mother noticed and reached across the table to touch my hand. Are you feeling all right, Hanif? You look pale. I pulled my hand away gently. I'm fine, Mama, just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was drowning. I was suffocating under the weight of expectations and threats and judgments. I excused myself from the table and went to my room, closing the door behind me. I sat on my bed and pulled out the burned Bible from its hiding place under my mattress. I opened it to Matthew chapter 10, a chapter I had read the night before. The words leaped off the page. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. The verse hit me like a physical blow. I was denying Jesus every single day, every time I prayed at the mosque, every time I nodded along with anti-Christian rhetoric, every time I pretended that nothing had changed. I read further. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother. A man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. The words were terrifying and liberating at the same time. Jesus knew what he was asking. He knew that following him would cost everything. He knew that families would be divided, and he was asking me to choose anyway. I spent that entire night in prayer, but not facing Mecca. I knelt beside my bed, hands folded, speaking directly to Jesus for the first time with full awareness of what I was doing. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a Christian. I don't even know if I'm ready for what this will cost, but I can't keep denying you. I can't keep pretending that nothing happened in Times Square. You revealed yourself to me, and I can't unknow that truth. The peace that had flooded me 2 weeks ago returned, gentler now, but no less real. I knew what I had to do. I had to tell my family the truth, whatever the cost. I had to stop living this lie. The next family dinner felt like walking toward my own execution. Uncle had invited himself over again, this time bringing aunt and all 3 cousins. Mother had spent the afternoon cooking, trying to restore some sense of normalcy to our family. I helped her set the table, my hands shaking slightly as I arranged the plates. She noticed and squeezed my shoulder. Whatever is troubling you, it will pass. Just give it time. I wanted to tell her that time wouldn't help, that I had made a decision that would shatter everything, but I just nodded and continued setting the table. Everyone arrived by 6 o'clock. We gathered around the table, the smell of Mother's cooking filling the apartment. Grandmother led us in a prayer of thanks to Allah for the food and for keeping our family strong in faith. I kept my eyes open during the prayer, unable to close them, unable to participate fully anymore. When we began eating, the conversation started pleasantly enough. Cousin Ahmed talked about school. Aunt discussed plans for Ramadan. But then Uncle steered the conversation exactly where I knew it would go. He started talking about loyalty to Islam. about the importance of standing firm in a culture that wants Muslims to compromise. Some people forget who they are. They let doubt creep in. They start questioning what they've been taught their whole lives. The table fell silent. Everyone knew he was talking about me. Father added, his voice measured and deliberate, "True believers don't waver, they don't break, they don't let one difficult moment shake their entire foundation." Cousin Ahmed, eager to prove himself, jumped in. "I could never betray Islam. I would die first. I would never become one of them." I set down my fork. The sound of metal hitting the plate echoed in the sudden silence. Everyone turned to look at me. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was the moment. There was no going back after this. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. I need to get something. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer where I had hidden the burned Bible, and carried it back to the dining room. The moment I placed it on the table, the room erupted. Mother gasped and covered her mouth. Grandmother started praying loudly in Arabic. Uncle shot to his feet, his face turning red. "What is that doing in this house? Get that filth away from this table." Father's expression was unreadable, a mask of controlled fury. I stood there, one hand resting on the Bible, feeling the weight of every eye on me. I've been reading it every night for 2 weeks. I've been reading this book and I can't stop. Aunt grabbed Mother's arm as if to steady her. Cousin Ahmed stared at me like I had just announced I was a terrorist. Uncle moved around the table toward me, his fists clenched. "You bring this corruption into your father's home, into the home of an imam." Father held up his hand, stopping Uncle's advance. "Let him speak. Let him explain himself." I looked at my father, at the man who had raised me, who had taught me everything I knew about faith and devotion. "I can't pretend any more, Father. Something happened to me in Times Square, something I can't explain away." I told them everything. The Bible that wouldn't burn despite the flame touching it repeatedly, the pages that wouldn't tear despite my strength, the verse that burned into my vision, the peace that flooded me when I surrendered, the 2 weeks of reading and discovering truths that contradicted everything I had been taught but felt more real than anything I had ever known. Uncle interrupted me repeatedly, calling me a liar, saying I was making excuses for my weakness, but I kept talking, kept confessing, kept revealing the truth I had been hiding. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Then Mother started crying, deep sobs that shook her whole body. Aunt tried to comfort her while glaring at me with pure hatred. Grandmother cursed me in Arabic, calling me every vile name she knew. Cousin Ahmed and his siblings huddled together, looking at me like I was a monster. Uncle stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You have one chance, Hanif, one chance to take back everything you just said. Renounce this madness, burn that book right now, recommit to Islam, or you are finished in this family." Father finally spoke, his voice terrifyingly calm. "Your uncle is right. You have a choice to make right now, in front of all of us. Choose your family and your faith. Choose the community that raised you. Choose the God you have worshipped your entire life. Or choose that book and everything it represents. But understand this, if you choose that book, you're choosing to leave this family. You will no longer be my son. You will be dead to us." The finality in his voice left no room for negotiation. Mother rushed to me, grabbing my hands. "Please, Hanif, just say you were confused. You don't have to mean it. Just say the words they want to hear. We can pretend this never happened. I can help you. We can get through this together." Her desperation broke my heart. I looked into her eyes, seeing the love and fear there, seeing her trying to save me in the only way she knew how. "Mama, I love you. I love all of you. But I can't lie about this. I can't deny what happened to me. I encountered Jesus Christ in Times Square and he changed everything." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Then chaos erupted. Father lunged forward and grabbed the Bible from the table. He tried to tear it in half, but couldn't. He threw it across the room where it hit the wall and fell to the floor. "You are no longer my son. Get out of my house." Uncle grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the door. Mother was screaming, begging Father to reconsider. Grandmother continued her curses. Aunt shielded her children as if I was dangerous. I ran to my room and threw whatever I could grab into a backpack. Clothes, phone charger, wallet, my laptop. Cousin Ahmed appeared in my doorway. "You're going to hell, Hanif. You've chosen eternal fire over your own family." I pushed past him without responding. What could I say? I grabbed the Bible from where it had fallen and tucked it into my backpack. When I returned to the living room, the entire family stood there like a wall of judgment. Father pointed to the door. "Leave now, never come back. Don't contact us. Don't try to see your mother. You are not our family anymore." Mother broke free from Aunt's grip and ran to me. She grabbed my hand as I reached for the doorknob. "Please, just lie to them. Tell them what they want to hear. We can figure this out privately. Just don't do this." I kissed her forehead, tears streaming down both our faces. "I can't lie about this, Mama. I'm so sorry, but I can't," she whispered so only I could hear. "I'll pray for you every day. I'll pray Allah brings you back to us." I squeezed her hand one last time. "Pray for me, Mama, just pray." Then I opened the door and walked out into the February night. The door slammed behind me and I heard the locks clicking into place. I stood on the sidewalk outside my childhood home. Everything I owned in a single backpack, nowhere to go, no plan, no safety net. The temperature had dropped and I could see my breath in the cold air. I started walking with no destination in mind, just putting distance between myself and the life I had just left behind. For the first time in my life I felt completely alone. My family was gone, my community was gone, my identity was gone. Everything I had built my life around had been stripped away in one devastating conversation. But as I walked through the streets of Brooklyn, something unexpected happened. The peace I had felt in Times Square returned. Not the dramatic, overwhelming flood of that first moment, but a quieter, steadier presence. Like a hand on my shoulder, like a voice whispering that I wasn't actually alone at all. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Most of them were from the mosque, from the activist group, people who would never speak to me again. Then I saw a name I hadn't thought of in months, Mike, a friend from college who wasn't Muslim, who I had distanced myself from when I got more involved in activism. I called him at 10 o'clock at night. The phone rang 4 times and I almost hung up. Then he answered, "Hanif, hey man, it's been forever. What's up?" I took a deep breath. "I know this is crazy and it's late and we haven't talked in months, but I need help. I just got kicked out of my family and I have nowhere to go, and I know this is asking too much, but I don't have anyone else to call." There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Then Mike said 5 words that changed everything. "Come over, I have a couch." I took the subway to Queens, to Mike's small apartment. He opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking concerned but not judgmental. "Come in, you look frozen." He made coffee while I tried to figure out where to start. Finally, I just told him everything. The protest, the Bible that wouldn't burn, my family's rejection, my growing faith in Jesus. He listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from surprise to understanding to compassion. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My church might be able to help you. If you want, I can connect you with our pastor." The next morning, I met Pastor David at a small church in a converted storefront. I was terrified he would think I was crazy or lying or seeking attention. I told him my story, watching his face for signs of disbelief. He listened intently, occasionally nodding, his eyes kind and patient. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Hanif, do you know what I hear in your story?" I shook my head. "I hear the sound of Jesus pursuing you." That's what he does. He doesn't wait for us to be perfect or ready or worthy. He meets us where we are. He pursued you into the middle of your hatred and anger. He revealed himself when you least expected it. That's grace. That's the gospel. For the next 3 months, Pastor David met with me twice a week for discipleship. He taught me how to pray as a Christian, how to read the Bible with understanding, how to live out this new faith I had embraced. The congregation welcomed me with open arms. Sister Maria, a woman in her 60s, brought me groceries every week. Brother Tom helped me find a job at a warehouse. These strangers became more family to me than many of my blood relatives had ever been. They didn't judge my past, they celebrated my present, they invested in my future, but I never stopped thinking about my biological family. Every day I prayed for them, especially for Mother. I wondered if she was okay, if Father was treating her well, if she blamed herself for what happened to me. I sent her text messages that went unanswered. I left voicemails that were never returned. The silence was painful, but I understood it. They believed I had chosen eternal damnation. How could they respond to that? 3 months after I walked out of my family home, Pastor David asked me if I was ready to be baptized. I had been attending every service, participating in Bible study, growing in my understanding of who Jesus was and what he had done for me. But baptism felt like a final step, a public declaration that couldn't be undone. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked. I thought about everything I had lost. Then I thought about everything I had gained. Yes, I'm ready. The baptism was scheduled for May 15th, a Sunday morning service. About 20 people from the congregation gathered. Pastor David asked if I wanted to share my testimony before going into the water. I stood before them holding the same burned Bible from Times Square. and told them my story one more time. This book wouldn't burn because Jesus wouldn't let it. He was protecting his word and he was calling me. I lost everything that day, my family, my community, my identity, everything I thought defined me, but I gained him, and he is everything. Pastor David led me into the baptismal pool. The water was cold and I shivered slightly. He placed one hand on my back and raised the other. Hanif, on your confession of faith in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. He lowered me backward into the water. For a moment I was completely submerged, completely surrounded, and I thought about my old life dying, about everything I used to be, washing away. Then he pulled me up and I burst through the surface, gasping and laughing and crying all at once. The congregation erupted in applause and tears. Sister Maria handed me a towel and hugged me tightly. Welcome to the family, brother. And I realized that's exactly what had happened. I had lost one family but gained another. I had lost my earthly father but gained a heavenly father. I had lost my old identity but found my true identity in Christ. The trade wasn't equal. I had gained infinitely more than I had lost. It's been over a year since that day in Times Square, February 12th, 2024, the day I tried to burn a Bible and ended up encountering the living God. I now work with a Christian ministry that reaches out to Muslim communities, sharing my story, offering hope to those who are questioning, providing support for those who have been rejected by their families for choosing Christ. Some people call me a traitor, others call me brave. I'm neither. I'm just someone who encountered Jesus and couldn't walk away. I still pray for my family every single day, and something miraculous has started happening. Mother has been meeting me in secret at coffee shops far from our old neighborhood. She doesn't say much, but she listens when I talk about my new life. She asks careful questions about what I believe. I can see something softening in her eyes, something shifting in her heart. I pray that one day she will experience what I experienced, that one day she will know the Jesus who pursued me, who loved me enough to stop me in the middle of my rebellion, who gave everything so I could be free. Look inside your own heart right now. Are you running from truth because the cost seems too high? I'm here to tell you that nothing you sacrifice for Jesus compares to what he sacrificed for you. He pursued me in the middle of Times Square when I was literally trying to burn his word. He could have struck me down. He could have let me go. Instead, he saved me. That's who he is. That's who he has always been. Merciful, patient, pursuing, loving beyond comprehension. If Jesus could save someone like me, someone who organized a protest to publicly burn Bibles, someone who hated Christians and mocked their faith, someone who was absolutely certain he was right and they were wrong, then he can save anyone. The question isn't whether he wants to save you. He does. The question is whether you will let him. Don't wait for a spectacular miracle like mine. The real miracle is happening right now as you read these words. He is calling you. He is pursuing you. He is offering you the same grace he offered me. My name is Hanif. I'm 29 years old. I lost my family, my community, and my old life when I chose to follow Jesus Christ. But I gained everything that truly matters. I gained peace. I gained purpose. I gained a father who will never reject me, a savior who will never abandon me, and an eternal family that will never cast me out. This burned Bible sitting on my desk is my most precious possession. Not because it's magical or special in itself, but because it was the instrument God used to reach into my darkness and pull me into his light. And now I'm asking you, will you let him reach into your darkness too? Will you let him save you the way he saved me? The choice is yours. But I promise you this, whatever it costs, he is worth it. He has always been worth it, and he always will be.